Hey, everybody, it's Carmen and Katie at Remax today.
Hi.
And we just wanted to talk about some super important things that are affecting our market here in Huntsville right now. A lot of it is nationwide, but obviously we're speaking specifically for the stuff that we deal with day to day. So, Carmen?
Yeah, so we're seeing a bit of a shift in the housing market right now. We're starting to go a little bit more towards a buyer's market. We're looking at inventory levels that are higher than they've been since about 2019 before the pandemic. So, we want to talk a little bit about what that means for both buyers and sellers. So, what do you think about sellers?
So the biggest thing is it's going to take a little bit longer. And that's hard for people to grasp because we weren't dealing with that for a long time. During COVID, it was a lot of properties had multiple offers within 24 hours. And obviously, we've got a huge shift from that. Now, we're not waiting super extended amounts of time for things to sell, but it kind of feels that way to a lot of sellers now because of, just this drastic shift.
I think they
And
said the average days on market in our area is around 2 months.
yeah, which at the end of the day, that's not terrible
No.
at all. But, I think coming off of what we were in, it feels like, oh my God, this is taking forever. So, pricing is super important. You have to price it right. You need an agent who's going to show you exactly where you should price it, explain to you why, and don't mess around with thinking, well, I'll just price it really high and see what I can make happen. And a couple of weeks later, you realize, oh, I made a huge mistake because at the end, you will make less money by doing that. And then also be willing to make adjustments. So if you did make that mistake and you priced a little bit high, or the market continued to shift since you listed, listen to your agent, make those adjustments. You may have to do a price reduction, you may have to offer some other incentives, which really brings us to what that means for buyers.
Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of buyers get more concessions from sellers. About 40% of sellers are giving buyer concessions right now, which could include, money off of the price, closing costs, or rate buy downs. And rate buy downs could be a great thing right now for people who are on the fence. They feel like the rates are still a little bit high. Fannie Mae is predicting that rates are going to come down by the end of 2025 and even more so a little bit by the end of 2026. However, if that happens, buyer competition will increase.
Mhm.
So now is a great time as a buyer to get into the market and maybe use that rate buy down concession as an option. Can you kind of talk us through what a rate buy down is?
Yeah, I actually did it on my own personal home that I purchased 2 years ago. So even though we were still in a little bit of a crazy market at that time, rates had started to go up. So I sold a house that I had a I think I had a 3.6 interest rate on. And we went to one, it was a more expensive house, but we ended up at a 5.6, 25, I believe is where we're at on our interest rate, but it would have been higher than that. So what we did was we went into this house. It needed a ton of work and it was a really interesting layout. So it allowed us more time to think about it and a little bit more negotiating power because nobody was jumping at this house. And we knew we were going to have to make some major changes for it to make sense. So anyway, we got in there. We requested 10,000 towards a rate buy down, and I got with my lender and I said, hey, what can we do for this to make sense? I need my payment to be X amount. What does my interest rate need to be? And what does that need to look like? There were a ton of different products. You could have done a 2-1 buy down where, it might hold at the same interest rate for 2 years and then it's going to drop, right, for another year. And then it goes back up. I'm sorry, not drop. It'll go back up. And so you'll have a little bit higher of an interest rate, but it would give you a couple of years of a break. Or you can do a permanent rate buy down. And that's what we did. So we requested that the seller pay 10,000 towards our closing costs to go towards that rate buy down. We also requested some other things and we did negotiate the price at the end of the day. But that rate buy down was super important. So I think we're going to see a ton of those come back into play now that sellers need to get creative.
Absolutely. And if you are a buyer and you're curious about that, we can put you in touch with a lender to answer your questions. oftentimes it can make an impact of a couple $100s a month on your payment if you can get enough off. So it's really definitely something great to look into. That being said, like we said, the market is shifting, so it's important to stay in touch with your agent, stay on top of things, and make sure whether you're a seller or a buyer that you're just engaged and knowing what to expect.
I like that word engaged. I think that's super important. And if you don't know what's happening right now and you're thinking about what you know from the past, then you don't know anything because this is completely different. And what we do every single day is stay engaged and we stay on top of things and watch the market and study it. So I think that's a really good point.
Yep, reach out to us if you have any questions.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.